Care to Chat? It's not just an invitation, it's also the title of our new podcast series from the Northern Ireland Social Care Council. Social care and social work are such enormously important parts of life here. They really came to the fore during the pandemic, and now with a crisis in the health service, they're in the news again. So what are these jobs? Who are the people who work in them? What are the routes into social care and social work? How can staff progress and develop their careers? What reforms are necessary? And how do people in these fields take care of themselves as well as their clients? Now, I know that sounds like a lot, but those are just some of the topics that we hope to address in this series. In this episode, we're focusing on social care reform, made with care. And I've three great social care workers with me at various stages in their careers. Teresa Miles of Belfast Central Mission, a social care worker, now a manager. Elaine Pollock of the South Eastern Health and Social Care Trust, who's progressed from social care to a career in social work. And Maggie Conlin, who's a social care worker at Lakeland Community Care in their Omagh office. So three terrific people, and I'm really looking forward to finding out about their journeys and their stories. Maggie, maybe I could start with you. What brought you into the sector?
Well, basically, I started in the caring community because the hours suited my family life. I wanted to have my children home with me in the evening and not childminding. So I went into the care facility to do a morning lunch run, which started basically from about 8 till about 2. And back then, we didn't have to do weekends. There was shift workers for weekends, so I wanted it for my family life.
And what was the attraction of the actual job, or rather than just the fact that it suited you? I mean, would you maybe naturally have had a kind of caring disposition?
Very, very much so. More so, I would start off probably caring for children when I first left school. Definitely the caring side of it, yeah. I kind of thought, well, I had no qualifications when I left school. I done my basic exams and left to get work and kind of money straight away. So I thought it was kind of a job I could walk into. Didn't realise how much you would learn and take from it and benefit from it, even in your own personal life, what you take home with you and what you learn. So it was very, very interesting and very eye-opening to what it was all about. It wasn't just going in and making wee cups of tea and saying hello and goodbye. It was a lot of caring. Mm-hmm.
We'll hear more about that as we go on today. Teresa, what about you? What took you into this line of work?
I suppose I've always been in this line of work from leaving school. Whenever I was sixth form, I went on to do health and social care, and then I got a part-time job in a nursing home, and I've always had a real interest in caring. So all my jobs are all in and around caring. I had worked in nursing home from I was 18, and then I moved over to England and worked in a care profession over there, and then moved home here. And I suppose that was 12 years ago, and that's when I started my career with Belfast Central Mission. And I've just stayed with them and followed various careers routes within the organisation itself, and have been in various roles within Belfast Central Mission. So I've always had a real keen interest in caring, and I feel I get great satisfaction into making a difference into people's lives.
What about you, Elaine? Tell us about how your journey started and where you went on then from.
Yeah, so I suppose to start off with, I came from a really large family. So I have 9 brothers and sisters. So I suppose that developed my personality, and I really liked, had a really big social life back then. And I suppose when I was about 20, a couple of friends had said they worked in this holiday home with adults with learning disability. And it really sort of intrigued me the way they were talking. So I was able to get employment in that holiday home for a summer period. And I suppose when it came to the winter period, I still needed to work. So I actually worked in a children's nursery, as in a nursery shop for equipment. And I kept thinking about, I really enjoyed that work over the summer. So I left there to go and work in a social care setting as a care assistant, and then progressed into a senior role there. But I really enjoyed working with people, and I think that was the part for me that got me into the social care world. Were
you maybe different from your friends, or a lot of people would get a job in a shop, or something like that, which I suppose in some ways, which you didn't take home with you, because the kind of work that all three of you are doing, you can't just leave it behind when you go home in the evening. You're still thinking about it, aren't you?
Yeah, no, absolutely. But I think that was, I suppose, a couple of my friends worked in that area and that inspired me. But I did also work in shops, and because I was very independent and left home when I was 18. And I suppose at that time I was just like, I need to work to get money. But I naturally fell into the right path for me, and which I'm really fortunate. I feel really fortunate about. But yeah, I mean, if I spoke to my sister, she would be like, I don't know how you did that job back then, and it's certainly not for everyone. But I think if you have a passion with working with people, then it is a really, really good career path.
I mean, that's a reaction that I'm guessing that all of you have from some people that know you, who'll say, oh, I couldn't possibly do that. I mean, quite a bit of your job, Maggie, I think, is supporting families around palliative care, which is a very difficult time for anyone. Tell us a bit about the skills that you bring to that job and how you cope with that.
Yes, very much. Palliative care, even the word scares a lot of people. And they think they have to be more than they do have to be. And you really just have to be there to give families a wee bit of maybe rest and try and buy them a wee bit of time. So I would have done a few palliative cares and stayed overnight. So you basically would have stayed with a client and just comfort them and reassured them and been there to hold their hand and let the families go to another room or go upstairs and try and switch their head off for a couple of hours or try and get a couple of hours sleep. And that's not easy done. Like, they might go upstairs or go to a different room, but they don't switch off and they're steady waiting on you to shout or call. So they are getting a very short bit of respite, but that's what you're trying to do, is give them that wee bit of reassurance that you're there in the room with them, and it's just a wee set of eyes to watch over their loved ones while they're trying to get the head set for tomorrow morning again and start again.
And what sort of preparation have you had to deal with that sort of situation? Because even if it's not someone that you're close to or fond of, it can be very difficult.
Very difficult. And like you said, when you go home, you're not switching off. You're waiting on the phone to ring. You're worrying, especially if you see pain or discomfort, you're worrying that they're still suffering even though you're away home. I done a palliative care course with my previous company, which was Glen Cairn. Linda Becca put me forward for it, and I done the palliative care course. Got a lot out of it. One of the biggest things I would take out of it is keep quiet in odd time and let the other people speak and just listen. Just be a quiet ear for them to talk or them to just say that they're scared, and don't say no, you'll be all right. Like, let them say they're scared. Let them say things that they can't say to family maybe because it is too close. And the same with family, they will say to you what they're dreading or what the next step, they're feared of the next step, or how do they recognise the next step. And you just listen and just reassure them.
That's very interesting, isn't it? Listening is a very powerful tool, actually, isn't it?
A very, very important tool, and you can't emphasise it enough. Just bite your tongue and listen.
Well, we all do lots of talking, Teresa, don't we? And I'm glad to say, because otherwise we wouldn't be able to be here today. But what tools like that have come into play as you've made your career progression?
I suppose it's very interesting that you mentioned about listening, because that's a main part of our role, is to provide somebody with a listening ear. So I've had various roles within my own career, but my most frequent or recent role is working with young people aged 16 to 25-year-olds living in our local community that are at risk of homelessness or that are homeless. So every single person that we would come across have their own different situation and circumstances, and I suppose our service is voluntary, so it's completely up to the young person whether they want to engage or not. And one of the main skills that we would offer would be to be non-judgmental and to offer a real person-centred approach. And I think that's where young people enjoy working with us and with our project and engage really well, because we're coming in to support them, and we're that person, their advocate in alien ways, but we also work really closely in partnership with other organisations as well to help that person fulfil their life and help them become independent. So whether that's living on their own or living with family, we look at the whole person as a whole holistic approach. I have a few skills, I suppose, that help me help engage young people, and it's about getting down to their level, understanding their needs, listening to them, communicating effectively. So, and it's about recognising that every single person has different needs. So it's about being very person-centred and a lot of respect. We need to have respect for everybody that we work with.
How did you get to this point now in your career? Because you told us a bit about how you started off and then you worked in England for a while and came back. But you've progressed considerably, really moved out of the social care worker area and into a management role, although obviously you're still dealing with children, with young people. Mm-hmm. Tell us a bit about that journey.
So I suppose whenever I left school, I left with, back then it was GNVQ, and within the nursing home that I worked with, I was very fortunate to be offered then additional training, level 2 health and social care through them. Then when I moved to England, it was a college for young people with disabilities. So various training opportunities were offered to all staff within there. I suppose I've been very fortunate being offered all these training opportunities with each career path that I followed. With Belfast Central Mission again, they're offering staff training opportunities and constantly looking at your professional development. So then I progressed up to level 3 senior support worker, and then within that role then I had in my PDR that I wished to undertake a management qualification. So because I've been in the role for so long, 22 years, I have always wanted to progress, and I think it's very healthy to keep learning. It's very healthy for the mind, and I've always done lots of research and learning, but always wanted to continue working as well as learning on top. So recently then I undertook the ILM level 4 in leadership and management, and that was during work hours every second Tuesday. It was online because we were just coming out of COVID times, and then I've just been very fortunate that a management role become available just as I was finishing the course. So I feel very lucky and very blessed with all the opportunities I have been given to help me progress in my career.
And you've taken them.
Yes.
Which not all of us do, actually, I think, but very interesting that you did take them. Elaine, you told us about how you started off. You were independent, left home at 18, working in a shop as well as the jobs that really mattered. And you're now a senior social worker. So tell us how you progressed through and what your route was to that end.
Yeah, so I suppose I was a late developer in education, I suppose. I started working in the trust really in 2005, and within that I met a really good team of people. I mean, my team it was like a social life going into work, and you needed that because we worked in a behavioural unit with adults with learning disabilities, and it was really tough, but your colleagues get you through that and you bounce off them and you get the support from your management. And I really, really loved that job. It was a great job, but I found I didn't know where I wanted to go to next. But the trust supported me to do my MVQ level 3 at that time. And then an opportunity came up to do an HNC in health and social care learning disability, and I jumped at the chance for that as well. But I remember one colleague in particular was she was about progressing in her career and what she was going to do next. And again, she inspired me. So that kind of friendship and inspiration of others, I think, inspired me to go, okay, what do I want to do now? So I applied for, nursing wasn't for me because I kept fainting all the time when I got blood taken or injections. So I was like, that's not going to work. So I thought I could really do social work. And I found out a bit more about it and researched it myself. And then seeing that there was opportunities to do the traineeship at that stage in the trust. But I didn't get into that. I was reserve, and I was really disappointed. But I managed then to get into just normally through university, and it was really quite a big step because I was going to have to leave work that I'd always done. I'd always worked. Of course, I still worked as I did my degree, and still worked for the trust as within that time. But it really, all of that experience really stood me in good stead for going into social work.
Whenever you did that research that you just mentioned there, about social work, you were in a social care context at that stage. You were researching social work, and then you did your degree in it. What was the attraction? What's the difference? If you're a social care worker and maybe you want to go into social work, what was it? What was it that attracted you to go in that direction, apart from not being able to have your blood taken without falling over?
I think, I suppose, just really getting out to meet people in their homes, that sort of community development side of things, and being able to assess needs and risk. Which, although you were assessing risk on a day-to-day basis in the role I was in the behavioural unit, I wanted to take it a step further, and I knew I had the ability to do that. So I think that's what made me go into that area and get into social work. And I suppose when I came out then of following my degree, I was really fortunate to get a job straight away in family and childcare. Initially went into a child and family team, and then moved into an intensive support team, and that was with adolescents with high risk behaviours, and I felt really in a good position from working in the behavioural unit and social care to really help me fulfil that role.
That's very interesting, actually, because I did wonder to what degree your social care experience made a difference to how you now work as a social worker.
There's so many things that are transferable. So I suppose working with behaviours, working with people is difficult. Working with colleagues is difficult at times, and I suppose you have such diverse backgrounds within your service users. And within the behavioural unit, I learned skills like, if somebody's shouting at you, you respond really calmly. And it's a very big skill in itself to be able to do that. But actually then transferring that to work with teenagers was exactly the same, because they shout at you and they call you names and they're not always in good mood. So those skills really set me in a really good place. And I was fortunate to be able to fulfil that role for a good 6 years before progressing into a management role then.
There was something that Teresa said that I thought was very interesting, kind of early on, where she was talking about the caring profession, and I think that's something, Maggie, that I think has come into the minds of people who aren't in any of your roles in the last few years. When it became clear the degree to which people who work in social care were playing such an important role during the pandemic and so on. Have you always regarded what you're doing as being in a profession, in the social care profession? And do you have to explain to some of your friends perhaps, or people that you meet, that you're, and I'm going to be pejorative for a moment, not just a social care worker?
Very much so. Yes, you do have to tell them that you're professional and you're trained and you're professional during your job, and some of them would sometimes think maybe that because this service is provided to them that they're entitled to that space, whatever it may be, and they could expect you to do anything and everything. So you have to treat it very professionally. But sometimes even the young girls will say to you, if they say to their friends, "Oh, I've got a job now doing domiciliary care or the caring profession," they'll be like, "Oh, you're running out making me cups of tea." And they're like, "No, really, we actually do caring. We actually do care for people." And they seem quite astonished that you do that at someone's home. They are totally shocked, like that, that people needs wash and dress and needs their food and needs an ear to listen to and needs all wee messages, if passed.
I suppose it's often not until you find yourself in that situation that you realise just how important it is. I mean, I broke my broke my leg a couple of years ago and had a very helpful social care professional who I know anyway, who came and helped and got me up in the morning and so on. It's not until you're in that situation that you realise that actually if you can't do it yourself, you're really stuck and you need that kind of professional care.
Well, it's kind of like a thing that's there in life, Wendy, and you don't realise it's there until you actually need it. So it's like, you know, even like the dentist, like your dentist is there and you drive past it every day, but it doesn't register with you until you actually have a toothache and you're like, he's God. So it's a very much a service that's overlooked, until you actually need it. But there is a lot of need out there for it, and a lot of need for good cares and compassion,
And what about the kind of training and progression that you can do, that you need to do? How has that worked from your point of view, Maggie?
Well, I'm not one much into books. Even at school I wasn't. I just couldn't sit to do books. Quite good at taking and learning ear-wise and manually-wise, but not books. So I started off with it, and you get your training when you go. It's about 2.5 days, maybe, training. I found it quite interesting. Lots of different equipment to use, which you don't associate with caring either. A lot of rules, and you think sometimes, really, like I need to do that to help this person. But when you get more experience, would you realise them rules are there to protect you and the client? Very, very important. Then whenever you're in the job a while, and if you're like it, they do offer you NVQs and your level 2 and your level 3 and even on to the management. I went down the road of doing the trainer's course. So I went up to Newry and done HIT. So I done training for my previous company, and I done it for this company for a short while. I done team leaders, I done senior management, I done on-call. So there is a lot to learn and a lot to do in it if you want to go on. I then took a step back and just done caring full time again and left the training. It's just fitted my lifestyle, and that's the great thing about caring is the hours are so different. We have a lot of like parents. Single, married, whatever, will come, and even grannies will come and do a wee night run. And fantastic, they start at 7 and the time is 7 to 11, but it depends on your run, and it just fits in with so many people's lifestyle.
And you've had people that have helped you and mentored you through your career. I know you do that for others, and talk about that in a moment, but your employer mentored you and encouraged you, which is hugely important, isn't it?
So I come back to caring. I had a break from caring due to personal circumstances, and I come back and I had the manager of Glen Caring, which was Linda. Fantastic. So much reassurance, so much in the right direction, so much encouraging you that you're a valued member of society, not even a member of staff, a member of society. And she would always been telling carers, you are a profession. You're not a home help. Like, this is a profession and you're valued. And she always would have pushed that to everybody. Would encourage lots of courses, lots of training. You were steady going on courses for like dementia, courses for the palliative, which you take a lot out of. She was encouraging everybody to do everything. So they also started up a rapid response team. Like, there's just so much out there to go in wee different lanes. Even if you still want to stay in the caring direction, there's just different wee branches that you can go down and different sides to focus. Like you can do for maybe someone that's not maybe as mobile, you can do like wee sits. So people, to give families respite, could get 3 hours sit 1 day a week, and you just go in and keep the person company and make them a cup of tea. And then there's the more physical side of doing the full caring role. There's just so much out there.
Teresa, your change in some ways maybe has been the biggest one, in that you're now in management. Does that mean that you don't get to do the bit that you loved so much before, and if so, do you miss it?
So this is the hardest bit for me. It has been a real challenge because my whole career has been about helping people and being out there, out and about, meeting people regularly. So I suppose in a way I was a wee bit reluctant at times to actually want to progress into a management role because of them reasons. I am so passionate about my job. I love going out and working with young people, building relationships. So I took on the role and I still carried a small caseload. Now with the management role, it brings different responsibilities, a lot of additional work, lots of different pressures. So I have been lucky enough to keep one service user, which I've been allowed to keep, because I think it's very important whenever you're connecting with the team, that I still know what's going on on the ground. I like to go out and still meet service users with team members, so it makes me feel like I'm still involved. I know what the current issues are, the emerging needs of the community. So I do very much like to stay involved and keep connected. It has been a challenge, I suppose, being more of a administrative role, but I'm looking at it, all the decisions that I am making, all the work that I'm doing behind the scenes is for the benefit of the service users. So I need to keep that in the forefront of my mind, but still keep a wee bit connected as well.
Well, it's interesting though, isn't it? That must be great for your team, because there's nothing like working for a boss that can do what you're doing on a daily basis, but actually can do it better than you can. That generates real kind of respect, and they must feel that they can come and talk to you about things because you've been there and done that, and can help them from a practical point of view.
Yes, I suppose I have a real understanding of what the difficulties are that the staff are all experiencing. And during supervisions we have discussions and we come up with new ideas on how to help people and how to improve circumstances. I like to think that staff can come and speak to me, and I suppose it has been a challenge as well, because the team that I've gone from being their colleague to now their manager, so that's taken a lot of adjustment as well. But they've been all very respectful and understand the different position that I'm in now, but they still understand that I'm available for them to come and talk to me at any time, and I'm not afraid to get stuck in and help out whenever we are short-staffed or they need me to go out and speak to maybe a service user is causing them some challenges. So,
and you're in a senior role now as well, Elaine. How have you found that kind of transition?
So yeah, similar to Teresa, I suppose I too wanted to work with the service users. That's why I came into social care and social work. And I had to really shift my mindset, because I was now a leader of social workers who were going out to meet with those service users. So I suppose I kind of utilised my skill in a different way and really mentored staff that I was managing to be doing going out there and using the most effective ways to work with people and making sure their values were upheld, and just that there was that genuine respect for what they were doing. Again, like Teresa, I too dipped my toes in when I could, because as a manager you have an opportunity to do that, and especially if the team's under pressure, I wanted to be that person that was able to go out and do what I could to help. So then I suppose I had a further shift, because then I moved into principal social worker role in a different team. So I'm now in the learning and improvement team within the Trust for Social Work and Social Care. And again, I had to have another mindset, because I wasn't working directly on the front line anymore. However, I was able to think, okay, but I can help influence the training and development of the social care workforce that are going out to work with the service users.
What about the current situation? I mean, I started this podcast off by saying that, because of the crisis in the health service at the moment, social care, social work is very much in the public eye at the minute. And there are obviously huge stresses and strains. How do your team deal with that and with the workload, and how do you deal with helping them to cope with that?
It's really difficult out there at the minute. I mean, teams are depleted, and I suppose it's the team that brings people back. So if you have it's about relationships all round in social work and social care. So if you are supportive to your team, if the team's supportive to each other, I would have maybe pulled together group supervisions to do some reflective work, but it's also about promoting that self-care and self-awareness within your team individually and as a group, and making sure that they are getting their breaks, and because you're only one person at the end of the day, and there only is enough hours in the day. So I suppose making sure people are outside of work having those de-stressing techniques and following that up in supervision and making sure that they're okay and just checking in with people generally. But it has been tough, and it's been ongoing for years now. When the pandemic came in, we thought, this is going to be 6 months and we'll be fine again. And suddenly, a number of years later, we're still talking about it, and it's still influencing, and it has impacted.
And that relentless kind of element of it, that pressure from the service users, from your clients and so on, that's hard to deal with too then, isn't it?
Very hard to deal with, because you're focused on your run and doing your job, and then the clients are sitting at home, they're listening to the news, and all they're hearing is about pandemic and about the spreading of it and the deaths of it, and they're sitting then in fear. So when you go to see them at, say, 8 o'clock call in the morning, and you go back at 12 for their lunch, that whole 4 hours they have been sitting and watching the news, fretting that this is coming to their door. And it just puts a lot more pressure and stress on the carers, on the clients, and you're sitting then reassuring them. So everything's just adding up. You're having your duties, you're having your listening, you're having then your talking. It's a lot of time. And that is all you can give them is just a bit of your time.
The pressures must have been pretty intense in Belfast Central Mission as well, Teresa. And when I said that in historically, but actually it's still the case, isn't it? It is relentless. It hasn't gone away, and there's all the funding crisis and so on too.
Yes, I was actually just going to say that. If anything, maybe it's getting worse. The current cost of living crisis, the rise in cost and rent, the lack of social housing, the list goes on. And these are all issues that our service users are facing on a daily basis. And with our staff, then they are being inundated with more and more issues coming from service users, and people in debt or people not managing, and they're nearly taking on the worry of them service users, and I can see the pressures rising within the staff. So I suppose, touching on what Elaine had said earlier, I am just promoting making sure the staff are keeping themselves well, looking after themselves, because they maybe are struggling as well. So it's about recognising all the current needs, all the current issues, linking in with other services, recognising that we can't do everything. We have great partnership working with other agencies in and around the local areas, and we're finding we are linking in and utilising more food banks and things more frequently now. It's worrying times, but I'm just thankful that people are aware of our service and linking in with us. And it's interesting whenever I make a call to a new referral, and they're saying, gosh, I wish I had known about you 3 years ago, and thank you so much for keeping in contact or making contact with us. It's heartwarming to know that we're now able to start working with people like that and starting to help improve their lives and make even if it's a little bit of difference, just having that, we're going to be that person for them to come to. It's worrying, and I can't see, anything getting better anytime soon.
No, I would totally agree. The home cares is the same. The demand for the home cares is greatly, and I think, like you said, the expenses is a big thing for the carers and for the clients, and also for the clients' families, because they're taking on extra roles at work, or they're trying to cut back. So if somebody's coming to visit a mother who's 20 miles away, they're only coming once a week now rather than coming 2 or 3 times a week. They're taking on extra shifts at work, so they're not free to come. Everything is just building up, and even with the carers' own personal lives, they have extra expenses as well. So expense is a big issue out there.
We're coming towards the end of our chat, and it might be nice to end on an upbeat note, because it is all pretty depressing at the moment, isn't it? But what have been the biggest influences in your careers, I wonder, and the kind of plus points? Maggie, what's been the biggest influence in your career? I mean, you started off saying that you had a caring nature, and that must play a big part in what you do. Have there been people who've pointed you in the right direction, who've helped you along the way?
I would definitely say yes. Like I said, my past manager, Linda, would have been greatly. Totally put me on the path I'm on, which I'm very appreciative of, and the path I thoroughly enjoy. I'm doing it about 26 years. I wouldn't pick any other job. I did try office work with the caring companies. Done it a couple of months. Not for me. I have to be physical and I have to be out there chatting to people. I just enjoyed it immensely. Immensely. I wouldn't do anything else.
Elaine, what about you?
I think especially coming into the trust, I think the progression and support for learning, I really took that with both hands. I was able to get, my degree, obviously. I was able to get a master's after that. I think I'm nearly on to my second master's at the minute because I keep learning. Because social work and social care is a profession where you have to do that because society changes, people change, and you need to be able to upskill yourself to work with people. But I definitely think the teams I've worked in and my managers have been so supportive throughout in kind of guiding me in the right pathway.
That's very interesting, isn't it? Because social work takes a lot of flack, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The only time you ever hear about social work is when it's being criticised.
Absolutely, and that's something I've sort of been challenged with throughout my career. But I suppose what keeps me going is the positive feedback you get from service users, from your staff, from other colleagues that keep you going and keep you motivated that you are doing something right. And you do have self-doubt, because we're all human. But I think whenever you get a good outcome for a situation or you help to support a change in a team that goes well, then that can only inspire you to keep going.
Teresa, what about you? What about your kind of biggest influences and the good parts for you?
I have had lots of great influences from my own management to senior management, looking how other people have progressed, especially within my own organisation. But most lately, I suppose, I mentioned doing a course, my LM over Teams, Zoom, or once a fortnight. The tutor,
is it your leadership course?
Yes. So the tutor there at Northwest College, and we've only ever met online. How bizarre is that? But just even the feedback that he was giving me, encouraging me, saying that he could see me being in a management role one day. And I am my worst critic to myself. And I suppose at times I thought, could I actually do that role? I've always been hands-on, caring. How would it look, me being in a management role? So I suppose it's the encouragement from others and my colleagues, my team members. So I've had lots of influences that have helped me progress and encouraged me to apply for the job, and I'm glad they have now.
Well, I bet they're glad they did too, I would say. It's been terrific talking to all three of you, Teresa Miles, to Maggie Conlin and Elaine Pollock. This has been Care to Chat, a podcast from the Northern Ireland Social Care Council. Thank you so much for listening. And if you'd like to learn more about careers in social care and social work, visit niscc.info, where you can find inspirational stories, great learning resources, podcasts, and much more.